welcome back. Thanks for watching this video in advance, and thank you for completing your initial research findings paper. I'm greatly looking forward to reading those, and I'll have your feedback ready for you soon. Now, just to kind of remind you of that overview of the course I gave you a while back, remember, now that you've got the initial research findings paper completed, you're half done with the class, right? There's 2 more major papers that remain. The next 2 major papers are an annotated bibliography and a data commentary paper. Please keep in mind there are no 5-paragraph persuasive essays in this class. There are no thesis statements in this class. Please shift away from these rather limited teaching models, is what we'll call them. All right, let's go ahead and get into talking about your annotated bibliography assignment. You may have created an annotated bibliography before. Certainly, if you've taken me for English 101, you know exactly what an annotated bibliography is. And this is a common, or rather popular, I should say, academic writing genre. This is probably not the last annotated bibliography you will be asked to create in your college career. So it's useful to understand how to create one, right? I've got some readings and some prezzies and some videos designed to help you do that. But the important thing to remember at the outset is that what is the annotated bibliography? It is a list of the sources you intend to use in the final paper with lots of informational writing about each source. You're going to explain to me what kind of source it is, why it's credible. You're going to summarize its information and explain to me why you chose it, how you might use it. We'll talk about that in a great deal more detail, but as you can see, there's no opinionated writing at all in an annotated bibliography. There never is. It's just you telling me about these sources that you found. It's an important part of research. Obviously, a good place to start here is the directions. I mean, I would never read the directions to you. That's not very interesting, right? I'm sure you can read just fine. But as you can see here, you need a total of 7 sources. However, like it says at the bottom, you can reuse some of the sources from the initial research findings paper if you like, as long as I didn't write you some kind of message telling you that one of those sources was not credible, for example. As you can see, I'm really giving you a lot of choice in terms of what types of sources you select. Of course, the sources do have to be crap tested. We can't forget about crap testing. That's an important concept that we will need to adhere to for the rest of the semester. Anyhow, as you can see here, again, I'll let you read this on your own, but this is helpful to talk about at the beginning, right? The one absolute must here is that you have to have at least 2 academic journal articles. Why? Well, you need those for the final paper. They're going to provide you with the data that you will comment on in the final paper. Okay, so that's why that is a requirement, that you have to have at least 2 academic journal articles. They work best when they are geared to focus on providing, when you find ones that provide data that is somehow connected to the subtopic that you identified in your initial research findings paper. And indeed, the whole idea, one of the ideas of that paper was to help you understand that when we think about discourse about big issues like social media, the opioid crisis, and plastic waste, those discussions focus on smaller subtopics. And indeed, your work in the annotated bibliography should continue to focus on that subtopic you identified in the last paper. If you're having difficulty determining what the subtopic is, if you struggle with that in the last assignment, you should message me, right? Or you should stop by office hours. You can show me the op-ed. We'll read it together, and we'll figure out what your work on investigating the subtopic should look like, right? What that subtopic is and what kind of things you need to investigate. I'm happy to help as much as you like. That's the cool thing about op-eds and opinionated articles. They always invoke at least one subtopic. Okay, enough about that, because I think, as usual, it's going to help you to look at some examples of an annotated bibliography, particularly if you've never created one before. Okay, let's show you those examples. As usual, they're going to be under modules. right? And then you are going to find the annotated bibliography toolbox. Do you see how I have one for each of the main topics? These are all three of them. These are A papers. They're quite well written. None of them are perfect. I'm sure you can find some minor errors in there, but the idea is that they will show you what kind of work you should be doing. Okay, so as you can see, the first one has to do with plastic waste. And the subtopic is this fascinating idea of these waste to energy plants where they actually melt plastic and use it to create energy. They turned it into fuel oil, I believe. This was not my idea to explore this subtopic. This was the student's idea based on an op-ed she read last semester. It led to some really, really fascinating work and an amazing final paper as well, right? And so as you can see, let me just jump over here. Right, so her subtopic for plastic waste was, as you can see here, waste to energy plants. All right, now yours is probably going to be different. I'm pretty sure we have somebody in the class who is looking at the discussion surrounding plastic bag bans. Right, so that's a completely different subtopic than waste to energy plants, but they're both under this broader topic of plastic waste. Right. There's another subtopic, could be restrictions on industry production of plastic. That's probably not the best way to phrase that, but the idea is that there is some debate about that out there about trying to encourage companies to use less plastic in the products that they create. Again, you should have your own subtopic that you have identified with the help of that op-ed in the last assignment. Okay, so then we've got opioid crisis. And what did she focus on in her sample paper? Medical treatment of opioid addiction. Okay. All right, so this is things like methadone and a whole host of other treatment options that are available for people who are addicted to opioids. Methadone is sort of an older treatment option, but it is one that is still discussed. Of course, there are lots of other subtopics that might not be yours. I had somebody last term that wrote about needle exchanges. Okay, so that's an interesting one. I had somebody else last term that talked about the impact, talked about child addiction, kids that have chronic pain that end up potentially getting addicted. So again, your op-ed is the guide for you to identify your subtopic. But the idea is that all the sources that you found in the annotated bibliography are designed to help them learn more about these things, right? Whether they're informational sources or maybe they could be opinionated sources, right? Like some people, don't support the use of medical treatment like Suboxone. They think addicts should quit cold turkey. You will find op-eds out there like that. You might also find op-eds out there supporting it. The idea is that we're not looking for your opinion in the annotated bibliography. You should not be going out trying to justify some kind of preconceived argument. That's not good research. Instead, you should be exploring the discourse. Figure out what kinds of things are being written about this and read them to help you understand it more, to help you understand the debate, right? Social media is the last one. And don't worry, I'll go ahead and pull up one of the sample papers in a minute. But again, this sample paper in here, he looked at the issue of government regulation. He was particularly interested in targeted ads based on information that they collect about people, whether the government should be more involved in regulating these things. And again, he doesn't make any kind of argument about that, but he finds all kinds of interesting sources about that, right? Again, I believe that we have someone in our class who's looking at, social media impact on mental health. That's one. And again, there's lots of different subtopics you could identify that are, under the umbrella of this broader topic. I worry that I'm boring you. I want to be sure that I'm clear, but I don't want to bore you, and I want to keep the video short. So let's go ahead and look at the example. Okay, let's go ahead and click on this one. Again, they're all good. It doesn't matter which one I pull up. Okay, let's take a look at this. If you've never done an annotated bibliography before, the first thing you notice is there are no paragraphs. There is no introduction. There is no conclusion. And there darn well is no thesis statement. Okay, what is it then? Well, as you can see, this looks familiar to you. You know what that is. That's a citation. All right? This chunk of information beneath the citation. It's not a paragraph. It's just a chunk of informational writing. It's called an annotation. And it's information about that source, about this source here. I have heard some students refer to an annotated bibliography as sort of a works cited page plus, right? Because again, it's a list of citations like a works cited page. They should be alphabetized like a works cited page. But then underneath each citation is an annotation which has all of this interesting information about the source. And of course, you have to read the source to be able to create the annotation. The whole idea here is that I can see the sources that you have identified to use in the final paper, and I can do a couple things. I can make sure you've identified 2 academic journal articles. B, I can make sure you have read and understand these and chosen credible sources to use. Basically, this is designed to ensure that you do well in the final paper, hopefully, right? Because I'm helping guide your research efforts to make, you're choosing the sources. I'm just working with you to help make sure that you understand them properly and that they're credible, right? And the annotation that you create is going to show me that. Okay, again, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sources. Okay. You're welcome to read a lot more than 7 sources. Indeed, I would encourage you to, but you only need 7 for the annotated bibliography. Choose your 7 favorite ones is probably the best approach to have there. All right. Let's go back to this before we wind up. So again, you can look at all 3 of the sample papers, or you can just look at the one that's connected to the main topic that you're under. It's entirely up to you, but they'll give you an idea of what I'm looking for. As you can see, there's more tools in here, right? Because, we talked about how to find opinionated and informational articles in the last assignment, but you're going to potentially need more for this one, right? Because you're trying to continue to explore the discussion, the discourse surrounding your subtopic, and then you'll need those 2 academic journal articles to provide you data related to it, which you can then comment on in the final paper. So as you'll see, the content for the rest of this week is really geared towards making sure you're able to identify those academic journal articles, because you do need to be able to use the library databases to find these typically. There are a few free ones that you can find on Google, but a lot of times it's much easier to use the library databases, and I've got lots of walkthroughs to help make sure that you find things that are indeed academic journal articles. So I'm going to stop saying academic journal articles now. I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you for watching, and as always, message me if you have any questions about this. Look through the samples, and hopefully you'll find this week's module content helpful. Take care now.